All right, I'm here with UMass head coach Frank Martin. Appreciate the time you coming back on with me. I want to talk starting lineup 4 months from now. What do we got? I,
Heck, we don't even know who the coach is these days. I mean, it's we used to get 4 or 5 years. By the way, when I was a high school coach, and I used to hear these coaches get behind a microphone and say, "Well, I've got a 5 year plan." I used to laugh at it. I'd be like, "What is a 5 year plan?" I had no idea what that meant. But heck, in this moment we're in college athletics, shoot, coaches, we don't get 5 weeks, let alone 5 years. And in our rosters, uh, we're all trying to figure it out, man. I'm not complaining. I'm a big believer. We should all do whatever gives us peace. I'm not into this whole force people to do what they don't want to do. I don't mean to drag the conversation a different way. I'm all for the NIL. I think the transfer situation has to be reevaluated. I don't agree with this. Uh, uh, I don't agree with this portal window.
Mhm.
I don't agree with it the way it's set up. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just sharing my
Yeah,
views. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with if we're going to be if we're professionals.
yeah.
Okay, if people want to say that we're pros, well, pros are bound by contracts, so there's no come and go as you please. And if we're not professionals, then we're in education. And if we're in education, then we got to prepare people for professional decisions, which is when you sign a contract, you don't get to pout and go home when you don't get your way. And so there's stuff we all got to figure it out. But no, it's Nathan, we're all in the same boat, man. I mean, Archie and I are friends. I mean, his roster flipped.
Mhm.
My roster is going to flip. There's guys in the business that are dear friends of mine that I respect tremendously, that are the polar opposite of me from a personality standpoint. They're really competitive. They're just opposite than me as how they show their competitiveness. And they're ultra successful. And they've lost 5 and 6 players from teams that have won conference championships. So it's an interesting moment, but I'm excited, man. I'm excited. Uh, you know, I, I talk about this a lot. I'm a math teacher by train. I've been trained to be a math teacher. So my brain is wired to solve problems. That's what math is all about, creating logic to solve problems. And I don't view this as a problem. I view this as something I'm trying to figure out and I'm trying to solve. So, but I'm excited, man. At the end of the day, it's about I get to coach basketball. It's about helping other people try to figure out a way to find their way, and away we go. See if I can if I don't figure it out, Nathan, you tell me where you're going to live at, man. I'm going to come hang out
All
with you
right.
for a couple of days.
Perfect, perfect. We'll do it from the beach. We'll just sit and we'll just bring some people on and ask them the
Oh,
questions. That's what we'll do.
I'm all in, brother. I'm
Yeah.
all in.
But you have plenty of time for your starting lineup, so we don't have to worry about that. But just got a year two off season. Having a year under your belt at UMass within the
Yeah,
conference as well.
yeah,
Even this new class that's coming in. Obviously, you had a class that when you came on board last year, but this is your first kind of full year off season to kind of sell UMass and what you're trying to build. What feels
yeah.
different just kind of going into these workouts compared to last season?
I have a better like Matt Cross, Rasul Diggins. I had recruited those guys out of high school. So I had a feel for who they were as people and and their abilities as players. And I'm picking on those two because those are two of the guys that came in that have stayed. Um, um, it, with everyone else, Nathan, I live by this saying, and I've lived it by it for a long time. The season reveals the truth. And the summer we all get along, everyone's happy, they all do what you ask them to do. Preseason, there ain't no cameras, there's no playing time, there's no referees, there's no social media opinion of individuality, and that's a big part of that age group. I, forget that age group. It's a big part of society right now. We all go to our phones to like read or whatever.
Yep.
The difference is I don't, as a 57-year-old, I was not trained to pay attention to outside voices because it didn't exist. This young guys, they live their life for approval of the outside voices. I live to find approval of the inside voices. And that's the biggest difference, trying to figure out how to manage that dynamic. But bottom line is these guys that we brought in this year, these are guys that we've either been recruiting for 2 years, that we understand deeply who they are. Let's take a kid like Jalen Curry. I've been recruiting Jalen Curry of South Carolina for 3 years. I've known Jalen Curry since he's a little kid. It's his uncle played for me. There's a dynamic there, that there's a better understanding. It's not just an opportunity. It's an opportunity with a pre-existing relationship. And, so you take on those guys and, let's see what happens. Rob Davis. I was at an AAU, I guess. I don't know if this counts as a violation. If it does, so what? I don't cheat, so I don't worry about talking about what I do. But I'm at this big AAU event. I just got hired at UMass. And this lady comes running over and hugs me. And she's like, "You got to watch my son. You got to watch my son. We love UMass. You got to watch him. You got to, like, he's number so-and-so on this team over here." And I'm like, all these people, there's a gazillion people standing around the court. And I'm looking around like, man, these people don't think that I'm having a conversation with a parent here. I got to be careful. And so I watch a game and I was like, wow, he's pretty good. And a month later, they were here in an unofficial. 2 weeks later, he commits. There was an enthusiasm for who Frank Martin is, coupled with UMass. And now that they're here, that enthusiasm hasn't changed. It's actually kind of permeating across our team.
No, absolutely. I actually had the, honor or privilege just to talk to. Speaking of, you mentioned Davis. Seems like a great kid, confident, mature. But just on a side note, with some of the guys you just mentioned, I wanted to talk about Cross, and I'm not going to go through the whole roster, but Cross in general, just to have a guy like that you trust. I know how loyal he is to you. You've talked about that loyalty, that trust, but to have a guy that in this kind of sunshine moment of off-season workouts, just to have him there to kind of be a leader on the floor and on the stuff that you can't control, how important is that as you guys go into this next year?
Well, when we lost them last year is when we kind of spiraled. The first time, I can't remember who we were playing. I think it was Richmond at home. And he didn't tell anybody. He was sick as a dog. And somehow, some way, we got through the game. We got a win. And the next day, he was done. And like at the time, I don't speak about people's personal journeys publicly, like the challenges that they go through. He got put in the hospital. He was really sick. He was in the hospital for 5 days. And when he finally got out, then he missed another 4 days or so. So when we lost him for that time period, he was the personality of our team. He was the guy that not only scored, not only rebounded, but created the toughness, the presence, the physicality that I needed our team to be about. And so then he lost 20 pounds over a 12-day period. And then he comes back to play, and he was trying, but it takes a little time. You don't go through that and you're right in the middle of conference play and your team is the same when he's the person that's leading the charge. I mean, I'm not into all the individual accolades and all that stuff. It's not my thing. I wish I would have been trained differently from that perspective when I was younger, so I can promote my players individually better. I try, but it's not my thing. I'm more into the relationship and winning games than the promotion. But he was playing at a all A10 clip when he got sick. Then he comes back, and I think it's the second or third game back, he almost tears an ACL in the game against Loyola Chicago. Or Loyola Chicago, I can't remember, man. The game, it's all a blur. But now he's down with a knee injury where he can't do any running. And he came back for our last home game against St. Bonaventure's after practicing one time because that's who he is. And but having him back is awesome, man, because he's a guy that, you hear the phrase all in. That dude is all in to whatever I've asked him to do. I don't speak about negative stuff because they're young. They don't deserve their negativity, their challenges be put publicly. But I will speak about positive stuff publicly for individuals. He's getting ready to have the best academic semester he's had in 3 years of college. He is really proud of that. That goes hand in hand with the fact that he's getting ready to stay at the same school for a second year for his first time in college. And I'm excited, man. He's all in. When you hear all in, he is all in.
Yeah. No, that's great to hear. And, you had mentioned obviously the challenges of kind of roster turnover with, losing guys. Obviously, you then have the opportunity to bring guys in. One guy in particular, talking about Cohen, obviously, has had a great career thus far, the NEC Player of the Year. I had talked to him several weeks back. He had kind of mentioned too that, you guys are looking to utilize him even in different ways, maybe than he was used, previously. But what does he bring to the table, and how are you guys looking to, help, his game evolve in a UMass uniform?
Yeah, I mean, his ball goes in the basket. That's the best way I can describe. Like, some guys are great in drills and their shot looks really good and their technique is really good, but their ball doesn't go in. His ball goes, you don't score 40 in a game twice in your career unless your ball goes in the basket. And so he knows how to score. He knows how to get to the foul line. Our team, our biggest weakness last year was scoring in the paint. We had one of the lowest conversion percentages in the country. See, I'm not into the analytics, but that's an important number. Because that's a big part of who we are. We got to score in the paint. Heck, Denver just won a championship because they score in the paint better than any team in the NBA. And you got to score in the paint to be good. And we got the ball in there, but we wouldn't convert. Well, Josh converts. So right away, he's going to help us in that department. His spirit, his positivity, his enthusiasm, his willingness to compete, not run away from competition. He wants structure and he wants growth. Comes from a family that they comprehend that you got to get better. So he's wired to improve. I'm a teacher. I'm into growth. So one of my recruiting pitches to him was watching you in college, you pretty much have played the five with your back to the basket. Well, to make money professionally, that's going to help you. But you don't want to go post up guys that weigh 270 pounds because that's what you're going to have to do if you keep playing as a center. He can shoot the basketball. Well, we have to help him grow his game by being comfortable playing facing the basket. Facing and playing with your back to the basket, it's two different animals. And people think because you can shoot, that makes you a face-up player. No, that just means that you can shoot. He's got to learn how to make decisions facing the basket to go along with playing with his back to the basket, and that's been the message that I've shared with him. Growing his body, he's not one of these guys that jumps up and dunks balls over people. He doesn't go get a rebound when it's at 11 feet off the ground. So he's a guy that uses his body to score. Well, he's got to learn how to use his body to defend. To rebound. And so he's got to build his body because everything he does is through contact. And if you're doing everything through contact, you don't want your body to break down on you. You want to be the stronger player to withstand the contact. So building his body up, that was another thing he and I spoke about a lot in the recruiting process.
Definitely. And just a couple more. One specific player, just because obviously new to UMass fans, new to A10. We're talking about Daniel. What he brings, obviously coming from South Carolina, how do you see him fitting in? Again, another building block for you guys going into next season.
Yeah, Daniel, again, a guy that I recruited for almost 3 years, signed him in South Carolina. I tried, I shouldn't say I tried, I stayed completely out of trying to convince him to come to school here. It was hard because I had such a connection with him and his family, but I also comprehended that, Charlotte, I convinced him to come to Columbia because of the proximity to Charlotte and how tight his family is. And it would have been real selfish on me to try and then turn around and send word, which is unfortunate that some people do that. I choose not to. Yeah. I'm not here to judge others. I work in the space that I have peace in. Hey, man, forget that. Being close to home, come up here. So that conversation never took place. There was never a decision to be made. He actually, out of decency, the decent human being that he is, he picked up the phone and called me one day and said, Coach, I just want you to know that I met with my family and I'm staying in Columbia. I said, good for you. Good for you. Boom. And we hung up. And unfortunately for him, he didn't have a very good freshman season. I think Daniel can be a really, really good player. I'm in reality, he went in the portal as soon as the season ended. If I had gone to recruit him hard right away, he would have committed to us back in March. But I did not. And I did not because I needed him to be really, really sure that leaving that pocket of the country to come up here was something that he was prepared to do. Do it because it's what he felt was good, not what I felt was good. And so we were really, really patient in that recruitment. When people say being totally honest, so what's that mean? Everything else you're saying is a lie, or a story, or you're deceiving. But being transparent. Yeah, I needed to go get Josh before I can get Daniel. If I had gotten Daniel first, I can see someone like Josh saying, hey, you got this guy back. Now you just got this guy who you recruited before. So I needed to get Josh first. So we put all our efforts into, convincing Josh that we'd be good for him. And he believed in us. And then once that happened, then I can put my attention into Daniel. And Daniel him and his family, man, they were steadfast the whole time. Like, UMass is a spot, man. We're just waiting for you. We're waiting for you. And as soon as I made the decision, like, let's do this, it was over and done with. And but I love Daniel. He brings 235 pounds, athleticism. Not just, there's some guys that are athletic that jump to the rim, and then there's guys that can jump to the rim through contact. He's one of them. Like, he gets 0 to 60 quick. He goes from 0 to whatever his vertical is quick, and powerful. He loves ball, and he believes in who we are. He loves Brian Steele, my assistant. That's who recruited him down there. Incredible relationship with him, me and his family, incredible relationship. So we're excited, man. I think he's going to add an athleticism, a power, that we didn't have last year on our team. We lacked athleticism on our team last year. He definitely brings that.
Oh, it's great. Well, listen, and like you said, I know it is early. I don't want to take too much of your time. I know we'll probably hopefully revisit this, leading up into the season. But I'm looking forward to kind of this second year for you, for UMass, and I greatly appreciate the time, Coach.
Absolutely, man. I told you, anytime you need me, I'm a phone call away. You cover the A10 it's a league that I respected when I was on the outside. Yep. And now that I'm in it, I respect it even more. It's whatever you ever need from me, you got.
Thank you. I appreciate it.